Welcome back to Negotiation Tactics. I had promised last week that this week I would be introducing the deepest level of paraphrasing, in my experience, the most important level of careful listening. And I hope, I know you are reading both the text and the workbook as we go through these skills step by step. I hope you are actively practicing reframing positions to interests and that you feel comfortable approaching me with any and all questions or posting your reframing in your group discussion so that I can help you with this. This is a very important, powerful practice, and it's one of the ones that our students seem to struggle with the most. Once again, like last week's, I'm going to turn to a PowerPoint to help you with this. And the PowerPoint starts at the deepest level of paraphrasing, what I am going to call the level of meaning, what is most important to the speaker, and often unspoken. If you remember my lecture from last week, paraphrasing at the level of emotions, being able to show sincere, non-judgmental interest, and if possible, sincere empathy, can really help build the trust so that the speaker opens up and trusts you with this information. And as I mentioned last week, it really only works if you truly are attempting a win-win negotiation in good faith. It can't be manipulated or used for a win-lose. With careful listening, we actually, as listening negotiators, help the speaker negotiators understand their emotions, understand what is actually upsetting them, what is most important to them, what will satisfy them in the long run with the negotiated agreement. Many of us, I don't know if Americans are all that skillful at helping children grow up into adults who are comfortable with their emotions. So we will often find that boys, for example, have been encouraged to express and feel anger, but not hurt, sadness, fear, while girls may have been raised where it's okay for them to cry, but actually deeply understanding what they need to do to take care of themselves is not something that they're equipped to do. And so as adults, we help each other understand what messages we're actually attempting to give ourselves. Now, we call this, when we're talking about positions and interests, reframing. So when I talk about reframing, if you envision a frame, a literal frame of a picture, I will take, for example, a very dull, drab-looking frame and reframe with a more attractive, beautiful frame. You get the picture of what reframing means, but in negotiation tactics, we are reframing language. And oftentimes, negotiators think they need to start with positions, arguments, demands, and this is what they will make explicit at the surface level of paraphrasing. But what the Harvard Negotiation Project and other skillful negotiation tactics courses do is teach you to reframe these demands into interests that can be used for win-win negotiation. Now, I'd like to say more to help you with this. Positions are normally win-lose, my way or no way, my way, the highway. You know, we have all these little cliches we use. They are our demands, our musts, our shoulds, and are framed in rigid ways. Interests, on the other hand, are our actual human needs. So we may demand $1 million, but actually we are hoping to be able to buy a comfortable home in a nice neighborhood, The actual underlying needs aren't necessarily $1 million. So the question you can ask is, what are you hoping to satisfy with this demand? This can help you with identifying underlying interests. We also refer to reframing within NCRP as laundering or detoxifying language. So perhaps someone has personally put you down or otherwise attacked you. They've made a verbal threat. And what we are seeking to do in reframing that attack or threat is to pull out the actual material in that message or underline that message that will help all negotiators advance with a win-win. Let me give you some examples of this. It's hard to explain abstractly. First of all, before I give you an example, oftentimes in NCRP and related fields, we introduce the psychologist Maslow's hierarchy of human needs to help with interest identification. At the very bottom of his hierarchy, for those of you who haven't studied it or those of you who have but need a review, are our basic physiological needs. So food, shelter, sleep, the physical. Steve Wynn of Las Vegas Status used some purported nasty tactics where he would deprive the other negotiators of sleep by doing marathon, macho negotiation sessions. So 24, 48-hour marathon negotiation sessions. And then purportedly would bring in everyone's favorite foods when they were utterly exhausted to lull them into accepting a win-lose deal that really benefited him and hurt everyone else. Maslow's hierarchy assumes, I would say, that most of us would not stoop that low, but who knows in our current political climate. Safety is the next level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, I just don't think we often consider whether, for example, other negotiators feel safe. We think so much in terms of win-lose, having the top position and trumping, that we don't even consider safety as an important part of negotiations. But with win-win negotiations, it is important to build trust, to encourage information sharing, and to otherwise go deeper with other negotiators to explore creative options. Now, I couldn't resist a little political statement because I'm talking to you from California, and I am very pleased and proud to live in a progressive, multicultural middle class, as well as working class environment. But as I watch from afar, I'm wondering how many Americans in our current political climate are assuming that they can simply mandate their own safety with wealth. And frankly, looking around us, the recent horrible massacre in Las Vegas, and the shooter was purportedly a billionaire, multimillionaire. I think this is a dangerous illusion. We do seriously need to consider safety. So what can we do as negotiators to assure that our sister fellow negotiators, to assure them that we are truly intent on a win-win, since most of the world is unacquainted with win-win or integrative bargaining? How can we assure them that we are creating a truly good faith, safe space where all interests are respected? We need to do this step by step through the negotiation process because we still have relatively few people who have been educated on win-win, and most of the world is going to suspect that we are actually attempting to manipulate or exploit them. Certainly, we will need to recognize and eliminate all not only actual threats, but perceived threats. So we need to have a sense of how others are experiencing us. They need some time to get to know us, to see that we have integrity, that we actually walk our talk, we fulfill our promises. All sorts of specifics that I'm not going to review with you today, but I trust you can imagine. Just imagine yourself as the negotiator with a life experience of other people attempting to take advantage and exploit. And then ask, what would you need to trust that this negotiation was a totally different process? Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the next level after physical needs and safety, is a sense of love, belonging to a group. And I would say this is also the level where we show that a win-win collaboration climate is a real possibility. If you were mediating a negotiation, you might ask the parties, the negotiators, to sit on the same side of the table, for example, to truly become partners in creating the best possible negotiation agreement that benefits all, optimally. There are other ways of doing this, but that is a powerful visual, so you get a sense of what is meant. Maslow goes on, the next level is the level of esteem. By showing other negotiators that we are able to equally respect ourselves as well as others, that we don't need to put down others or exploit others. We feel good about ourselves and good enough, confident enough to lead a win-win for everybody at the table. That certainly addresses the esteem level of needs. But as you're actually negotiating the substance that is involved at the table, taking this hierarchy of needs and asking, is the person demanding $1 million so they feel like they are a respected player? Are they trying to establish a certain reputation among a certain community? There are all sorts of ways this hierarchy of needs can be used to analyze interests from positions. Now, the highest level is the level of self-actualization. And I must say, I just interviewed one of our Jewish alumni who has lived in Israel and has a vision for building peace in the Middle East and around the world, South Bay included, in California. Whenever I have a chance to talk to our graduates who are actively attempting to plant seeds of peace and hope in this world, I see an example of students who are aspiring to self-actualization. It really warms my heart to see their service, their examples, all of it. But the reason I'm introducing it here is because it may be present in various negotiations as well. I'm also at the moment teaching a restorative justice and peace building class, and I think of Amy Beale's parents who went to South Africa because their daughter had been killed in the violence of apartheid. Some of the black South Africans assumed she was one of the elite, perpetrators of apartheid when she was actually a Fulbright student who was fighting with black South Africans against apartheid. Well, her parents wanted to honor her life by forgiving her offenders and setting an example of the best of what human beings are capable of. That's a beautiful example, in my mind, of self-actualization. Restorative justice, for those of you who are not familiar with restorative justice, is about victims and offenders coming together and repairing harm done, sometimes forgiving each other, as I just described, but it's all an alternative to our retributive criminal justice system, the system we have that is currently focused on punishment, the same punishment for the same crime. The system, and I don't have time to go through it today, but the system is quite broken at various levels around the country. We're seeing it with community police relations all the time. So restorative justice is becoming more and more an important alternative. Certainly, win-win is showing the world a different possibility. And then for those of you who are mediating or who intend to mediate, when it is masterful, parties see it as truly miraculous. So these are all ways that self-actualization can be occurring related to our program. Now, I'm going to reframe a couple of sample positions demands into possible interests and needs to help you, as I promised to do. Once again, the demand is for $1 million. And a possible reframe, which is active listening, which is careful listening. It sounds important that you be honored and recognized. Now, this is out of context, so you're going to have to imagine context where it fits. But hopefully you're getting a sense of what it means to reframe a position demand into an interest human need. Here's another. Now, some of you have used my Holding These Truths workbook in ethics and other NCRP courses. For those of you who have the workbook, every single case study is going to give you active practice in reframing positions, demands to interests and needs, and you're welcome to use that workbook and its activities throughout this course and to post what you're doing so I can help you with it. For those of you who don't have the workbook, who've never been asked to buy the workbook, it's available via Amazon.com. And I recommend it for those of you who are seriously planning to do complex conflict resolution, make top important negotiations an important part of your professional advocacy work. Because the more practice you have, the more skillful you normally become. Here's an attack, you hateful human being. And a active listening response at the level of emotions, and then seeking to go deeper to the level of meaning. You sound furious with me. Can you help me understand? It can be very simple. What matters is that you're listening carefully to the party. Here's the demand. I demand an apology. And a possible response in order to help you with identifying potential interests and reframing this position is I need to understand how you see me as harming you. So you're gathering information. Now, I'm not Catholic. I was not raised Catholic, but I do believe that the prayer of St. Francis, if any of you know it, helps with reframing positions to interests, because we are, in reading that prayer, and I'm not going to quote it here, I'm just going to give you some highlights. The emphasis is on seeking to understand and give to the persons you are listening to, rather than seeking something for ourselves from them. We are considered, strong enough, mature enough, evolved enough to give ourselves safety, to protect ourselves, to give ourselves esteem. It's a nice model to help. I see that my time is up for this week. I would like to close by saying, don't forget to reframe your positions to interests as well. You need to figure out what matters most to you. Have a good week. Good luck practicing this important skill. I will see you next week. Take care.